There are a few different ways that you can make a photo look vintage. One of the easiest ways that you can do it is play around with your desaturation. Desaturation is going to slowly remove the color from your photo. When we choose to make a color black and white, it's very straightforward in black and white. But when we desaturate the photo, we slowly take the color away. So if I go up to Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, and if I focus just on the saturation tool, you'll notice that when I move to the left that I slowly get rid of the color. So it kind of becomes muted. The technique, if I go all the way to the left, if I completely desaturate it, that is a black and white photo. But you can kind of see that just taking away some of the color immediately gives it a little bit of a vintage feel. Another thing that you can do is actually go into the filters and the effects library. There are a couple of effect library categories, and one of the ones that probably would stand out to you are retro and black and white. So if I click on black and white, not only do I see the black and white example, but I also see some things that are more of a sepia example. And sepia is when you kind of have a brown tone to your images. And again, you can play around with the opacity or the strength of it. If I go back and do that again, I'll show you the retro ones. So here are a few filters that immediately give your photo a retro feel or a vintage feel. And then the final example is to change up the warmth of your photo. So if I go up to image and if I go up to temperature and tint, sometimes by warming it up, so by giving it more yellow effects, that's going to make your photo look more vintage. And I can take it one step further. When we did our effects and overlays in our, sorry, I'm losing track of my words, our blend modes, we learned how to do that. So if I were to add a layer, so add an image as a layer of maybe a distressed photo background, there's a few here that I can provide for you. And if I put that right over top of my photo, I can do a few things here. I can play around with the opacity. So I can just change the opacity, but I can also play around with the blend mode. Okay, so a lot of those things will help you take an existing photo and make it look vintage. We've also talked about vignettes before. So underneath filter, we have vignettes, and a light or a dark vignette around the edge of your photos will make it look more vintage. So if you're satisfied, remember to save it, and I'm going to ask you to have 3 examples of this for the assignment.